This is where the creativity.
Just a straight handoff. Pacheco dances up the middle and in. Touchdown, Kansas City.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
Happy Tuesday, Chiefs Kingdom. We've got some great news for the leader of Chiefs Kingdom as Patrick and Brittany Mahomes welcomed Patrick Bronze Levon Mahomes III into the world yesterday. 7 pounds, 80 ounces per Mahomes post on social media. Insert joke here about the greatest quarterback of the next generation officially being 1 day old today. And for the regular Did You Know segment, Patrick Mahomes now officially has the most wins, passing yards, and touchdowns of any quarterback in NFL history through their first 75 career games. And Mahomes plays his 75th career game on Sunday against the Bengals. And to help us break it all down will be Nate Taylor from The Athletic, who will join us in just a little bit for our 5 burning questions. We appreciate you for tuning in to this episode of KCSN Update, our daily Chiefs show and podcast here at KC Sports Network. I'm BJ Kissel, former Chiefs insider and sideline reporter, now just trying to create a sports media platform for some other content creators to do what they do best. So before we bring on Nate and get his 5 burning questions and his insider perspective on what's going on with the Chiefs right now, here's a quick word from our friends over at DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is my go-to when betting on the NFL this holiday season. They have the best app when you're trying to find the plays you're looking for. I personally love the anytime scores. You always feel like you got a shot and you can go across the league with it. And right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. And check this out. Right now, everyone can earn a 100% boost with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. Go to this DraftKings Sportsbook app, place a same game parlay, and combine multiple bets like which team will win, player props, point totals, and more. The more legs you add, the bigger the boost, the bigger your shot to win big. Chiefs this Sunday against the Bengals on the road are 2.5-point favorites against the team that ended their season a year ago with an over-under right now at 52 points. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code KCSN. Place a $5 bet on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code KCSN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, let's welcome on the Prince of Chiefs content from The Athletic, Nate Taylor, for our 5 burning questions. Nate, I'm going to keep throwing nicknames until one of them sticks, but Prince of Chiefs content, I like this one. You're everywhere, man.
It's totally unnecessary, but thank you, BJ. I always like to say that like Thanksgiving is when like real football starts, when you really have to decide who's good, who's not good, who's going to be in the playoff race, who's going to win the #1 seed. But with that comes like the most important games of the season.
Yep.
I don't think last week's game was very important. It was quite boring. But hey,
yep.
Real football
stress-free.
Yeah, stress-free, sure. Real football starts on Sunday though, when they play the Cincinnati Bengals. So it's like a 1 week after. I usually say like, how do you look through the first 12 weeks, which is usually when Thanksgiving sort of falls in line with the NFL schedule. Now it's week 13. How significant are the Chiefs? How legitimate are the Bengals and all that other stuff? But happy to discuss it with you.
You know what I love most about the point you just made, because very fair. And then when you add context to the AFC West, before Thanksgiving, every Chargers All-Pro basically on IR. Raiders players retiring left and right, cutting former first-round picks. Broncos traded their best pass rusher. Like just an absolute disaster over in Denver, and all before you're like nothing really starts till Thanksgiving. Like everybody else in the AFC West has been shutting it down, at least in terms of the Broncos and the Raiders with what they have going on. I know they got a big win this past weekend, but oof.
And the hilarious part is, I have to usually remind folks that like the middle part of the season is usually the most interesting because you get that interconference play. Guys get into a rhythm. Like, hey, how does your fantasy team look? But then after Thanksgiving, they just start flooding you with like Giants, Cowboys, and I guess now Commanders, Giants. You get all these divisional games. And to your point, yeah, the Chiefs haven't played the Broncos yet. Still got to play the Raiders, and those games are inconsequential to the divisional part of the season. But yeah, you are going to get like some Bills, Dolphins again. You're going to see Bills, Patriots on Thursday. So the divisional stuff is always fun, but it's like, yeah, those games are supposed to matter the most because they're at the end of the year and they are supposed to decide who wins the division, except in the AFC West.
Because the AFC East is what everybody thought the AFC West was going to be this season.
Yes.
So, all right,
that's what we
let's talk a little Chiefs Rams, the boring game that was stress free, and hopefully, based on paper, it feels like we're going to have several of these games down the stretch. To your point, with 6 regular season games to go, you've got the game against the Bengals and the Seahawks playing pretty well. Everybody else not as strong as we thought when this schedule first came out last spring.
Yeah.
But looking before we get to this is not one of the burning questions.
Okay.
But what was your favorite moment from being at Sunday's game? I always love the behind the scenes stuff that we can't always see on TV. What was your favorite moment from the Chiefs 26-10 win over the Rams?
That's the thing about Sunday was I didn't think it was like and this is totally understandable. Like it wasn't the best atmosphere. It wasn't like Arrowhead was on 10 out of 10 in terms of rating. There wasn't a lot of, Rams fans, which is understandable. They're not in St. Louis anymore. So they don't even have that sort of like regional sort of connection to them. But I think my favorite moment probably from the game was just the idea that, fans, I'm sure we're going to talk about this, BJ. But fans are knowledgeable. They are really, really invested. And I think oftentimes we as reporters or analysts or the players and coaches themselves, we get so focused on the job and what we're trying to do that we do lose sight of like people really are super duper invested in this team. And that's been the case, obviously, since I've been growing up in Kansas City. The idea that the loudest roar outside of Travis Kelce's touchdown pass was on a fair catch. That is
Justin Watson was a part of that. Justin Watson kind of egged him on a little bit. There was a little sarcastic cheering there. I wasn't quite sure how to feel about it
because it really wasn't. Everybody walked into the building, perhaps the Rams themselves, realizing that the Chiefs were going to win the game. But with all that said, I do think the fans just wanting a professional at the position, and it's not necessarily like, I don't think it's totally a dig at Skyy Moore. I think it's more of a reaction to the coaching staff and their decision making. But I do think that was like, I tweeted about it, but I was just like, I just couldn't believe that there's like, that's in a game that will be hard to probably remember. And this is what my buddy Josh Briscoe said on Times R, is like, just, hey, like it's gonna be a game that you're like, oh yeah, that's right, they played the Rams in 2022. Wow, don't even remember that. But I will remember that, like, it's not the same as like the end of 2018 when everybody was cheering or chanting, I should say, MVP, MVP, MVP after Mahomes threw his 50th touchdown pass to DeMarcus Robinson against the Raiders. But the fans, it does stay with me. I guess that's what stays with me most. There wasn't a ton in the locker room, although I know people were aware of Jason Sudeikis was hanging around with the team. But I kind of love that the fans were like, we have to applaud that we have accepted a fair punt, we have caught it, and now the offense can operate instead of that poor rookie who just hasn't figured it out yet. And he might not figure it out, and that might not be what he's, that's not why they drafted him necessarily. It's just the reality of the situation.
we'll put a pin in that because it may be one of the burning questions coming up here in a little bit. And I don't want to get out of order, but I was really hoping when you were explaining what was going on in the locker room, the vibe, I was hoping that you were going to tell me that Chris Jones was in the money corner, like the corner with like a money gun. Just like
Chris
I said on the postgame shows, like everybody in that locker room is probably like, hey, just move on. Like not super exciting, not like real, it's kind of very business like. Whereas Chris Jones in the corner just going nuts with his $1.25 million bonus for his 10th sack incentive.
It would have been really nice. I think George Karlaftis probably had the best thing. It's just about like how cool it is for him to sort of watch the way Chris has sort of worked and been successful this season. And look, he should have had his 10th sack weeks earlier, but of course, the referees get involved and make some judgment calls.
Yeah, that's true.
But I thought George probably said it the best. At the same time, though, Chris didn't really. It's weird. It's like, it's just. I think business-like is a good way of saying it, but like he just he wasn't his normal jovial self. And
he wasn't.
I think guys just realize that like, I guess from a overall sense of the team, a lot of the guys who are not rookies were like, okay, that's over. I really want to get to Cincinnati. Like, I really just want to like, okay, that wasn't great, but it was good enough. And like, okay, we're gonna work to get ready for Cincinnati. And I think Andy even acknowledged that when basically saying like, I don't even want to tell you what was wrong in the red zone, guys, because we play the Bengals next week.
Yeah, that was it's like the best answer. And going back to Chris, I was surprised because Chris's postgame presser after the Chargers win, he was very subdued compared to what his normal personality is. And I don't know if it's just him holding it all in and trying to maintain that for the presser, or if he is just really, I don't say at peace, but just kind of on a different level of focus and mission this year, where I respect it.
Yeah.
But the fun side of me was like, I want Brett Veach with a giant ass check walking into the locker room. That's $1.25 million and hand it to him, and all his guys can get around him and they take a big picture.
Yeah.
Like I want that kind of fun, but not at all what Coach or Brett are about. But that's what I want for Chris.
Yeah. I look, the position doesn't make you a natural leader, in my opinion. Like, defensive tackle does not scream, you got to be a leader. That's more of like a linebacker like Nick Bolton, or a safety like we saw with Tyrann Mathieu, years prior. Like, those positions, from a responsibility communication sense, sort of give off the sense of like, you need to be a leader. Well, I think Chris is trying to, figure out like, how do I want to be a leader? While also, being fun around the guys. But I, like I said, I don't know, I think maybe I said this to you last week, maybe I didn't, BJ, but just like, he understands that like everything sort of revolves around him, especially up front. And the reason Nick Bolton looks good is because Chris Jones exists, half the time. But yeah, like I get the sense that like he talked about this at the offseason mini camp, at the veterans mini camp in June, just about how much that Cincinnati game sort of stayed with him and was part of his motivation for this offseason. Beyond just, hey, if you have 10 sacks, you get a nice bonus. That's a great thing where everything sort of aligns up. But I also know too that he wasn't asked to be a leader last year, and I think this year Andy came to him with Spags, of course, and sort of said, hey, you're the longest tenured defender on the team. You're the best defender on the team. You're the most accomplished, alongside you and Frank Clark. And Frank's got his own situation to sort of reestablish himself. You don't have to do that. We know you're great. So see how you can sort of have an influence on the younger guys while also playing well, and also, maybe thinking big picture versus like, if this was Chris Jones in 2018 when he was on that sack streak, he was a joy to talk to because he just really enjoyed telling everyone how good he was. Where this year, he didn't have to do that. I don't have to do that anymore. You guys know how good I am, and it's been proven on the field. So I think we're going to probably talk to Chris this week ahead of the Bengals game. but it'll be fascinating to see like how he wants to approach it, and obviously what he does on the field against a new collection of offensive linemen for the Bengals.
Right. Yeah. To your point, I'm very interested to see, because it didn't take long for the post-game presser. You could say that they had already moved on to Cincinnati. The Coach Reed's favorite, like, we're on to Cincinnati line from 2014 or whatever that was that year. One of the more uncomfortable. I don't think you were there that year because that was really early on. But if you were, we all remember that. That was one of the more uncomfortable press conferences that game. But anyway, let's move on to our 5 burning questions. First one, most impressive aspect of the Chiefs' defensive performance on Sunday against the Rams. Because I don't think we always talk about the offense so much. Defense held them under 200 yards. So defense played phenomenal. I don't care if it was Bryce Perkins, first career start, whatever. But for you watching that, what was the most impressive aspect of it?
Yeah, and I wish I could give credit to the person who mentioned it on Twitter, who was, it was just like in my mentions, and I read it, and I gotta get better at like screen grabbing these things so that I can acknowledge these folks. But someone after the game said that they were, you never want anybody to get hurt, obviously, in a football game, even though it's a violent sport. But this person was like, the joy I had when L'Jarius Sneed came back into the game for the second half, and like not having to like worry about him in the concussion protocol, and obviously the implications of that moving forward. And then he just comes back and plays excellent. He was the highest rated defender. He might have been the highest rated player. I got to go back and look on Pro Football Focus's grades from Sunday's game. He obviously had the interception. He was phenomenal in the run game. Obviously they blitzed him a little bit, but L'Jarius Sneed was pretty good. And that's saying something when Chris Jones gets a sack and George Karlaftis is really active and sort of beats the Rams to the spot on the screen pass. I think Willie Gay and Nick Bolton are just getting better little by little as the season goes along. But I thought L'Jarius Sneed was probably the biggest player that sort of jumped out because he can do so many things schematically that helps the defense, hold an opponent to 200 yards when, and it's understandable, they're human, when some players are like, well, they don't have their main guys, so maybe I don't have to bring my best effort or get the most out of myself. L'Jarius Sneed was just kind of all over the field, and I think that's a good sign moving forward for the team because he's just a really short tackler. He's very good in coverage. He's got really nice ball skills. He basically duped Bryce Perkins into the interception. So yeah, he deserves a lot of praise. Yeah,
you're right. He was the highest graded player, and it's not even close. He was graded a 92.5 out of the game on Pro Football Focus for the Chiefs defense. People would say what they want about Pro Football Focus. We'll use them when the grades are really good, and when we don't like them, we'll just make fun of them. That's kind of how it's worked. Since Pro Football Focus came out. Just kind of how it all works.
Yeah, it's like, hey, every now and then the eye test matches the numbers, and that's great, guys. That's great.
At least and I talk with Trevor Sikkema every Friday here on KCSN Update. He works there, and we've had some fun conversations about the Patrick Mahomes grades and how you grade a quarterback who does things that they tell you not to do because he can. And so it's he and Trevor's talked about it. He's kind of reestablishing ways in which quarterbacks are graded. And it's not just, obviously Mahomes is the best, but there's a lot of quarterbacks doing things very much against what traditional quarterback coaches or football would tell you you're supposed to do, throwing back across the middle, across your body, all those types of things. But anyway, let's move on to the number 2. And I'm interested in what you've got on this one because you just got done talking about L'Jarius Sneed. There's another player that I think jumps up here, but number 2, most irreplaceable player on the Chiefs defense, not named Chris Jones.
Man, wow. Yeah, because now it gets to the point of like, if you remove that player from this current iteration of the unit, who would try to fill in that assignment, and God bless you for trying.
Yeah.
It's not a sexy answer. I think the more appealing one is probably L'Jarius Sneed because he can play outside, he can play inside, he can blitz, he can cover, he can tackle, he can fill in gaps.
But
with that being said,
okay,
he is not the same player as Tyrann Mathieu. But knowing Steve Spagnuolo's scheme, I think that answer is probably Justin Reed, which is why they signed him in free agency.
Okay. I did not see that coming. I thought you would go with Nick Bolton. Nothing against any of these guys. It's not not a slide. It's a surprising Nate with these questions. That's why they're burning questions.
Now, we have not seen a game without either guy. So, if you're a Chiefs fan, thank the durability and the production and the consistency of Nick Bolton and someone like Justin Reed. I think we know what Juan Thornhill is. We're not asking Juan Thornhill to do the same things that Justin Reed is, or you can't have this. You can't have as much disguise or variation, I guess, in the defensive coverages, and that also includes because you would have to bring up Brian Cook, the rookie, who wasn't noticeable. Like, best thing you could say about a safety in some games, especially when you're this young and this inexperienced. But also, they're bringing him along relatively, normal for a rookie. Like, hey, man, you'll get your snaps. You're the third safety guy. You understand, what things we're working with. But, we might not be as exotic if it's just you and, Juan out there. I think he does not have the splash plays. And that is, the difference, I think, from him and Tyrann Mathieu. The brilliance of Tyrann Mathieu when he was at his peak with the Chiefs was that he would play mind games with the quarterback, and it was breathtaking to watch because you're like, wow, how many guys can really do that? They are still doing similar things with Justin Reed. He's so consistently good that the quarterbacks aren't really trying him, So I get the sense that hey, if Nick Bolton goes down, Darius Harris can play, man. Willie Gay could be a possible sort of replacement. I don't know who that would necessarily be for Justin Reed. And I know if you want to say L'Jarius Sneed for all the reasons as I mentioned earlier, well, Trent McDuffie has similar qualities. He might not play it as well as obviously L'Jarius Sneed. So it's a bit of a curveball for most people to think about. Because he doesn't have the interceptions or the stats or whatever, but Justin Reed's been a very good player this year. And it's a role that has allowed, again, other players like Sneed, Bolton, hey, it's easier for the quarterback. It's easier to get to the quarterback if you're Chris Jones, if you're not busting coverages within 2 seconds.
Yeah. Mentioning Justin Reed, it did surprise me, but I like your explanation of it. And it's actually a perfect segue into this because it is Giving Tuesday. And one of the things that I love about Justin Reed that is similar to Tyrann Mathieu is the moment that he stepped into Kansas City and got here, he immersed himself into the community, giving back with his foundation, all the different things that he does. I see a lot of it on LinkedIn. One of the people that helps him out, Angel, I know a little bit.
What up, Angel?
Yeah. So
what up, Angel?
I know he's doing a lot. There's more coming out. Just saw the press release as soon as we started about his cleats for the My Cause, My Cleats deal coming up. And so it seems to be very thoughtful. Never talked to him personally, but seems like he's giving back to the community. And one of the things I want to talk about real quick, because again, it is Giving Tuesday and we're in the middle of our Soul of KC toy drive and raffle right now. We did this last year at KC Sports Network. We're doing it again. And I'm going to put this graphic up for everybody watching on social media, and those who aren't, I'm going to run through all of the items available and explain what this is for anyone who didn't see this last year. So our holiday raffle and toy drive, we've got 25 different items that were donated or that we purchased that we are raffling off for fans, people to have a chance to win. You can buy raffle tickets on the KC Sports Network Venmo. It's $20 for one ticket. You get for $100, you'll get 10 tickets for a chance to win. We're selling raffle tickets through December 6th, so next Tuesday, and then we're raffling off all the winners on December 11th for all of these prizes. All of the money raised goes towards purchasing presents and toys for Operation Breakthrough's Christmas store to help make sure that every kid in Kansas City, or as many kids in Kansas City as we possibly can, have a fantastic Christmas. Here are some of the items. I'm going to run through them as fast as I can. Here are the items available in this year's holiday raffle. Patrick Mahomes jersey. We are going to purchase that once somebody wins, so we make sure that it fits and it's the right size. A Creed Humphrey autographed stand-up sign. A Trey Smith autographed Kansas City Pioneers jersey, the professional esports team that Trey Smith is a part of, as is, I believe, McCole Hardman. There's a handful of guys, and McCole Hardman, I believe. There's a few of them, but the big one, lunch with Colin Saunders this offseason for whoever wins and 2 of their friends. Chiefs tickets to the December 24th game there on Christmas Eve at noon against the Seattle Seahawks. Cookie Society, Jeff Allen and Marissa Allen's company, get a monthly sampler pack for 12 months. Cookies for a year. We have 2 $80 gift cards to Manny's Mexican, $150 gift card to Capitol Grill, $2 $100 gift cards to Third Street Social, 4 $25 gift cards to Jefferson's Bar and Grill. Charlie Hustle Arrowhead Collection Pack, $100 gift card, 4 tour passes to Holiday Distillery, 6-pack of Jackson Family Wine, a 2017-2018 Kansas Jayhawks autographed basketball, a George Brett autographed book, Frank Clark signed football, a Skyy Moore signed football, an Ochai Abaji autographed artwork, Super Bowl LV signed football that includes Patrick Mahomes' autograph, and then finally a KCSN swag bag that includes a Charlie Hustle shirt and hoodie and a cooler bag that we had out at our golf tournament. That's pretty cool that it will all come in. So a lot of cool items. Again, tickets purchased at the KC Sports Network Venmo. Last year when we did this campaign, we raised just under $14,000. We have a goal set of $20,000 this year, and hopefully we can hit that, which means we'll buy hundreds, if not 1,000 toys for kids for this Christmas. So generosity of Kansas City helped us last year, hoping to surpass that this year. So because it's Giving Tuesday, I wanted to promote that. We've been promoting it all over social media, but a lot of cool stuff. Man, lunch with Colin Saunders in the offseason. Nate, you've been around him. How much fun would that be? Some people, like, they see him on pressers. They know you've been around him. I've been around him. I don't think I can put words into how much fun that experience would be.
It's going to be fantastic. He's from St. Louis. He's really enjoyed being in Kansas City. He's got stories on everybody on the team, by the way, because everybody on the team likes him. I mean, he's a very gregarious, boisterous kind of personality. He's really tight with Chris, of course. But no, like he'll tell you some fun stuff. And look, I mean, if you win this and BJ passes this along to whoever the winner is, ask this man what it was like to be a running back in high school. Because I wrote a story about that when he had been drafted by the Chiefs leading up to his first rookie camp. I got the tape, y'all. I got the film. It's out there. It's out there. But I think you'll have a lot of fun stories about playing running back. And they tried BJ. Now I think the Rams were like, "Hey, what is 99 doing on the field in the red
I was
zone?"
so angry. I angry. I looked at Kent. I'm like, those mother.
Yeah, and then Eddie was
upset.
Like, we can say that for Cincinnati next week. Don't worry. But he told me after the Colts game when they showed it the first time that yes, there's more plays in that personnel package.
And the fact that they took him out on the next one tells me it's like he was getting the ball. Like, upset about that. You could also get him going, ask him who has the best handles in NBA history, and then kind of question when it's like you could play point guard and just kind of say it like that. He'll go on for a while. So he's got some handles though. He's very good at basketball.
He's also got his own music too, so he can talk about music and production. He's just a very creative person who's very also just happens to be pretty good at football. So no, that's a real treat. Whoever wins that.
All right, let's move on to the third burning question here for Nate Taylor. Just about 28 minutes. We're going to set a record for the longest show here today, Nate. What do you make of the Ronald Jones Melvin Gordon, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I know he's on IR, but he'll be back in a few weeks. Running back situation as we move towards the last 6 games of the regular season and into the playoffs. How is this all going to shake out? Please make all of this make sense for us.
Yeah, I'll try my best. It's that they're kind of setting up a gauntlet for this position, a real, like, I don't know what the comparison is, but basically, anybody could be in the rotation for the first playoff game. This is basically all that this sets up. And I guess you could say Pacheco has the inside edge at this point because he's obviously been the most productive running back this season. Right. He's been the most durable. He is a rookie. He's dynamic. He has the best, like, he has the most dynamic skills to, like,
I think he's the guy. Yeah,
have a play
for sure.
You would think, but this season's kind of ebbed and flowed and changed. I'm gonna write a story pretty soon about Jerick McKinnon. I think his role is incredibly valuable as the third down back. He's one of the best third down backs in the NFL, which is one of the reasons the Chiefs offense is still leading the league in points scored. But what this means is they can tell Clyde, in some ways for his own benefit, however this high ankle sprain goes, like, you can take your time. You do not have to rush. We have 6 weeks left in the season. We might get the bye week with the number 1 seed. Like, you're not coming back until you're fully super duper healthy. And so
players can take that a couple ways. Clyde Edwards-Helaire could take that a couple ways. Like, hey, we just got Melvin Gordon. We got a motivated Ronald Jones. You just go ahead and take your time.
Take your time.
You just don't worry about it. And that player's like, 4 weeks, Rick. Like, I'll be back in a week and a half.
So let's see it. But, like, let's medically test it and make sure that is the give and take that goes on. But it's I'm glad you provided that, BJ, because that's why I said it.
No.
For Melvin, it's like, hey man, you can catch the football. Guess what we do in this offense? You gotta catch the ball. So that's how he can get on the field the fastest, I believe. It's actually not by his running ability, which has been all right this season with the Broncos. Now, do the Broncos have a good offensive line? No. So maybe it would look different with the Chiefs' offensive line right now. The assumption is that Joe Tooney will be back for Sunday's game against the Bengals. But hey, maybe he'd look a little bit better. He'd get the occasional touch. If something were to happen with Jerick McKinnon, who's taken, some hits this year, blocking his off for Patrick Mahomes, maybe Melvin Gordon fits that role best. For Ronald Jones, that felt good, didn't it? Don't you want to do it again? We also have to motivate you too by bringing in a guy who could supplant you if the production slips or isn't as consistent. So it's, Brett Veach is really Brett Veach and Andy Reid, because they work in tandem. Everybody knows this. Brett Veach works for Andy Reid. Andy Reid tells Brett Veach, let me hear what you're thinking, and then we can sort of go back and forth on it. But ultimately, those two men have come to the understanding that we have 15, which means as much competition as possible at the skill position groups. So that means, building up the tight end position with obviously, Noah Gray and Jody Fortson, and, who knows what's going to happen with Blake Bell, but like he's sort of, floating around. But hey, that's 4 legitimate tight ends. Hey, we have like 8 legitimate receivers. It just depends on like who's healthy and who's available for that game. Like, let's get as many running backs as possible. How much juice does Melvin Ingram have? We about to find out, y'all. Is it going to be as good as it was with Le'Veon Bell for like a couple weeks, or is it going to be even better than that, or is it going to be even worse? Well, they'll see it in practice and potentially against his former team against the Denver Broncos.
We're going to get another veteran running back to come in here and leave pissed off and say that Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid don't know what they're doing because they're washed and they just didn't know that yet. And this is not fair to put on Melvin Gordon. We saw it with LaShawn McCoy.
Right.
And we saw it with Le'Veon Bell. They both left and were very critical on their way out. They were disgruntled because they were basically told, you don't have it anymore. And then they went to other places barely and didn't really do anything. So I'm hoping that that's not the case with Melvin Gordon. But yeah,
and Eric Bieniemy, not a man who can sugarcoat things well. I'll just be very blunt about that. He's honest.
Some people actually appreciate that, and on a completely different level. I'm not comparing these things, but my college baseball coach was like that. You knew but you knew exactly where you stood with him because he didn't sugarcoat anything. If you got a compliment, you earned it. I loved, going on a little soapbox here, I love coaches like that. That's why I love EB. I love when he gives you a compliment, you absolutely earned it, and there's no guessing where you stand. You know exactly where you stand. And for me, and that at my point in life, like I needed that. Like I was a first guy that was just like, you're not very good at this. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? I thought I was pretty good at this. I'm in college. Like, you're never gonna play. Like, well,
so look, everybody can be motivated by week 17, week 18. That's what matters. Is everybody healthy and everybody motivated to get on the field and get some touches? That's what this sets up.
We talk about like motivation of players, and it's funny because this happened during the game, and I was laughing because Taylor Rapp, the Ram safety, either didn't do scouting or didn't really think through. The first time Ronald Jones touches the ball this season, he ain't going out of bounds. Nope. Like he got that ball on the sideline and put his head down, went right into Taylor Rapp's chest. And Taylor Rapp was kind of surprised by it. Like, how could you be surprised? Like that dude's not going out of bounds at all. It was one of my favorite, like low key like that was one of my favorite moments. And then Isaiah Pacheco like popping up every time he got hit in the red zone or getting hit late out of bounds, sprinting back to the
I want
huddle.
more.
Like, I love all of more. I'm here. Inject all of that straight into my vein. I love all of it.
Because I asked Pacheco, I was like, but why? Why is that motivating? Not for you, but why do you think it has an effect on not just the opponent? But he's like, dude, if I sprint back to the offensive line and tell each lineman, like, let's keep going, then like they'll block harder for me. And I was like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense, young fella. Like, how about that? Like, you in your first season recognize that and are willing to put it on display. So we'll see if he can keep it up. But yeah, man, you don't get into this job to be right. I don't do that. I get into this job to report, to obviously connect with folks, to try to tell them as much information about your team. And in addition, it does feel good when you're like, guys, he was really good in camp. And I've covered enough training camps to realize this dude's really, like, I don't know if this is like a couple months of a fluke, but this is really good. And then you talk to coaches in Rutgers, you talk to other people involved, and you're like, no, he's pretty determined and well thought out, and like is pretty good at like picking things up pretty quickly. And then if Andy Heck loves you, well, then you're gonna see the field. So that's what Pacheco has accomplished, and now it's about seeing how far he can push it. But he's still the number one guy. But how much of a benefit will it be for the team? Again, if every running back is relatively healthy, as best you can be in week 17 and 18, and they're all capable of being available for you, however the offense needs to stay balanced to some degree against an opponent in the divisional round or the conference championship round.
Yeah. That's why I always appreciate your coverage, because so much of us, and I got guilty. I mean, all of us were guilty of it at some point, getting, falling in love in OTAs with a player. It's like, that's like Kenny Cook was my guy. Like, I was like, this dude, like every year is like Ross Travis or Kenny Cook or Mark Harrison. Every year there's just like these, off-season all-star, training camp all-stars, guys who played really well. And you don't want to knock them for making plays, but it's like, can you do this when the pads come on? But I remember, the reason I appreciate you is that you don't always fall and get caught up into like the narrative of the time. As far as like what people are talking about, like, oh, this is gonna be a guy, because it's OTAs and you're just trying to like be excited about stuff. It's not even intentional. You just get caught up in it.
Right.
But I will never forget when Tyreek Hill first got there. And obviously there was a lot going on with Tyreek at the time, but promoting what he was doing at practice and people just being like, we've seen DeAnthony Thomas, like we've had fast guys. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, this is like, I feel like he's in a different, like he's an alien type speed. This is not the same thing. He makes a lot of very, very, very fast people look very slow. And it was can't believe this is going to happen. Granted, there was a lot there at that time with Tyreek.
But can
when
you
he first got there, but
can you imagine? I just love how you was like, it's not what you think it is. Because I always think back to like, man, think about that Division II local kid from like Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Kansas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, who was a dog at Division II, and you get a tryout request from the Chiefs, and you have made it to the highest of your profession, and it's just off-season training. There ain't no pads, no one's getting hurt, it's warm, everybody feels good. Who the hell is this guy? Like,
it was
coach. I can't put nothing good on tape because look at him.
It was so different than anything that I had ever seen, and even like coaches and like the support staff around that were just like the first few practices, like eyes open, just like, holy cow, smokes. Like this is something. And again, it wasn't like you could write a dozen stories about how he was looking just because of the time that it was in and the things that people were writing and talking about. Not necessarily at Chiefs.com, getting into a lot of that, but trying to talk about like what we're seeing. It's like we're seeing the most explosive player in NFL history, and I don't care if it's 3 OTA practices. This is it. So anyway, enough about him. Let's talk about another player. Switching gears a little bit. Mentioned him off the top of the show, but Skyy Moore. Nate, does Skyy Moore return another punt for the Chiefs? And why you marinate on that question. It stood out to me that when he was asked about it, Coach Reed, who never says anything like this, basically just came out and said, like, that was bad. Like, that wasn't good. It's just like, oh, wow. It's not this like earth-shattering comment, but if you've watched enough Andy Reid pressers and how he answers questions like that, that was not nothing.
The answer is no. From an interpersonal standpoint, I do wonder how they'll handle this. Because, like maybe spend some time on your own in the offseason and we'll come back to it.
Because he didn't do this in college. It's not necessarily fair to him.
Not his, and it's not his fault that like McColl's injured and that Kadarius Toney's injured and that like because you're like the fourth receiver. That's normally what the fourth receiver does in this situation.
And now I think it's mental. Like, never talk to I don't know him at all, but I don't know how it couldn't be mental at this point where unless he's camped under it, if he's running forward to catch the ball, I am worried for his confidence.
Or if
he was back there.
If you're unsure in any manner, it doesn't feel good to give up yardage, but just don't go near it. Just don't. No. So
like McColl did his rookie year. Like that was his problem. It's like he just didn't catch it. He kept bouncing, and it was driving Dave Toub crazy.
And but this is a bigger philosophical thing, and I know fans are not thrilled with Dave Toub this year, for obvious reasons. The answer is no, because you do have Justin Watson, which we talked about earlier. Kadarius Toney could come back and be an option. Although, how much do you want to save his hamstrings for Patrick Mahomes snaps versus see if we can make a splash play? It's hard for coaches to change their philosophy in the middle of the season, to change who they are as the core. This, ladies and gentlemen, is why Bill Belichick will and remains the best coach at doing this, at saying, here are my players. Here's what they're capable of doing. I will shift in their direction. Dave Toub needs to probably acknowledge that they can't be aggressive with these group of guys. So if you want a splash play, if you always want to put pressure on the other special teams unit, I get that. But if you don't have the horses, if you don't have the guys, if this group of young players is taking longer to develop because there's so many of them, and they're also getting time in like offensive meetings, defensive meetings. They're playing real snaps on offense, real snaps on defense, which takes away time from like having more hands-on approach. Then you got to fall back and realize that your quarterback is the most talented thrower of the football. The most important thing is possessing the football so that he can possess it. And so they don't need to return another kickoff. They don't need to return another punt. Unless there's a very rare circumstance. But even then, I still might say just give the ball to Patrick Mahomes and the rest of the offense.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes has a passing yardage record to break. So if we let it bounce, he has to get an extra 25, 30 yards at worst every time. Like, not the end of the world. Otherwise, just put Colin Saunders back there. Like, I know our guy could catch the ball.
Like some people have suggested.
I want to see it.
Yeah, some people have suggested Trent McDuffie. We kind of saw that at training camp, but Dave Tobe didn't love that. And look, Trent McDuffie was going to be a starter, so it's like we don't want to put a ton on his plate already. And he is a starter, so it's a weird predicament. But the answer is no. And to your point, BJ, talking about confidence, build that man's confidence through the offense, because that's where he can make the most impact for the remainder of the season.
And for those keeping track, Patrick Mahomes is on pace right now. I just double checked it again. He is on pace to break Peyton Manning's single season record for most passing yards. Patrick Mahomes on pace for 5,540 passing yards this season, and the NFL record set by Peyton Manning back in 2013. And that Broncos team set every offensive record there is, and most points scored and all that stuff. But 5,477. So he's pacing it by about 70 yards. So the difference of getting it, not having those guys not catch it, get that extra 20, 30 yards.
Will he be on the field in Las Vegas in week 18?
Because of Buffalo's schedule, this is a much different conversation. We could do a whole podcast on this, but Buffalo's schedule, if you look at it, especially as banged up as they are, the way Josh Allen's playing, Von Miller's banged up, they have got some tough games. They got to play Miami again. They got to play the Jets. They got to play the Patriots, I think, twice, including the last game of the season. The Bills are going to lose at least one more game, which means the Chiefs have one that they could drop and still be all right. But for the sake of the Chiefs team, I hope he's not playing. For the sake of Patrick Mahomes breaking that record, which I have a bet on. Nick Bolton leading the league in tackles, which I have a bet on. I would love for these guys to play in the final week of the season, but I also have a bet for them to win the Super Bowl. So, I want to get those guys to stay healthy against the Raiders. But I would love to see the Chad Henne Bowl January 8th out there in Vegas. Have him go out there and do his thing and give all those young guys a shot. And maybe we'll see Skyy Moore return kicks on January 8th. Let's get that opportunity to go in to Allegiant and get that done. All right, Nate, let's go on to the final question here. And it's more of an open-ended one, but Chiefs Bengals. We're going to look forward now.
Yes.
Chiefs Bengals on Sunday. When the schedule came out, this was the game that I kind of circled. This is the one that I was most interested in. It wasn't the Bills game because the Bills didn't end the Chiefs season in a very abrupt way that a lot of people didn't see coming. Bengals beat them twice. Now you're going on the road facing the team that just kind of took it from you in a little bit. You kind of gave it to them and they took a little bit. And then it's Joe Burrow with his fucking cigar and all, like the whole deal. Don't want to see it. Not happy about it. What are your expectations for Sunday's game? You were around these guys post game. It seemed like compared to games past, they had already kind of turned the page on that game. And I don't know if it was because the questions were, that's the one thing when you're watching press conferences, like, oh, this guy's playing really well because everybody's talking about him. Well, if every media person asks about the same player, it's not like, oh, he's killing it. No, they were answering the questions that were asked. So
right.
Did you get a sense that they had already started looking forward to Cincy, or is that based on the questions being asked?
No, it's both. Sometimes I think guys on the team are like, yeah, man, like let's go. Let's have a real conversation about like where we are in the season. So Justin Reed was really quick about like, I appreciate this. We know what challenge is coming up. and this is what we how we need to process it all. And him just being very very blunt about like, no, Jamar Chase will be back next week.
And Joe Mixon.
I'm much aware of this. We all talked about it. We know he's gonna be back. We kind of know he's head out of this game so that he could be back against us. So that his body could be right against us. I expect a lot of fireworks. I expect a really motivated team. I don't know if it's going to go exactly the same way that it went down against Tampa Bay, right? That was really the first game where I was like, okay, like that's the first true circle it down for the guys. Mm-hmm. I think for fans and for reporters, it's like, okay, we want to see what the offense looks like on opening day against Arizona. Okay, the best divisional rival to them is the Chargers. It's why Amazon wanted that game on Thursday night. Then you get to, everybody overlooked the Colts. Just going to be honest there. Then you get to Tampa Bay. And that was, I thought, the first true circle because it was the rematch of, when they had an opportunity to be a dynasty and they fell at the last step or they stumbled at the last stage of it. Then you have the Bills, which is crazy because, like, I looked at that game, BJ, as like, well, that's just the next chapter in this saga that I'm just going to enjoy all the way out because it's going to go back and forth. But yeah, I think for the guys, I think the 3 games that are not divisional related were Tampa, Buffalo, Cincinnati.
No.
And the addition of Carlos Dunlap to this is really fascinating too, because he's one of their best players of the modern era, and yet didn't have the success that like the young guys had. I also understand too that, like, again, Chris Jones, everybody's got a moment that matters on the team. Chris Jones didn't get the sack of Joe Burrow that could have maybe kept the Chiefs from not losing all momentum. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes had his worst stretch in a postseason game in his career. Travis Kelce, non-existent in the second half. Don't know if that's his fault. Don't know if it's the Bengals playing, 8 defenders back, but didn't have a moment in the second half of that game. Even someone like Nick Bolton missed 2 chances for a turnover, dropped 2 interceptions, one of which occurred in the second half. So for a lot of the core guys, they all remember that. I think it matters for Orlando Brown, who got beat on 1 third down snap. Otherwise, he was pretty perfect in the playoffs, all things considered. And yeah, it's the team that prevented you from going to the Super Bowl. So there's no lack of focus this week. And I think for Andy and the coaching staff, it's like this, and I truly in some ways believe this, depending on how it goes. But if you look at the schedule, we've talked about this, it's the last potential AFC opponent with a winning record left on their schedule. So this is the last sort of dress rehearsal. Even though it's like early December, this could be the last dress rehearsal for a playoff game. And then, of course, you can tell the guys, well, if you want to see them again, beat them now so that they have to come to Arrowhead. If they make it, if the circumstances present itself to where you have to meet them again. So you may have to beat the Bengals twice. But I think the coaching staff is going to put its best for right now. Things can change over the course of the season. You can obviously build better things and have better stuff for the postseason. But for right now, know who their players are with 11 game sample. I think the coaching staff is going to put a lot of their best stuff out there.
Yeah, this is going to come across as disrespectful to the Bengals. But it's one thing if you lose to the Bills in the playoffs, like you lose to a team that you feel like is in your tier.
Yeah.
This one was annoying because the Chiefs are a better football team. I know they beat us twice. That's fine. There's nobody out there that thought the Bengals were on the same, at a normal across the board sample size of everyone who watches football, covers football.
We thought we already saw the AFC Championship game, BJ. They just happened to play in the divisional round.
You lose the 13 seconds game. You're pissed. You're bummed. Not putting lipstick on a pig about anything with losing being a good thing, but at least you can be like, you know what? The Bills are going to go win the Super Bowl. Like, they're a good team. Losing that game to the Bengals in the way that second half did, it still bothered. Like, I'm not getting that feeling out of my stomach until we go to their place and win. I don't care if it's a regular season game, it'll make me feel a little bit better. That's why that game, I think, stung so much for Chiefs fans. It did for me personally, is because there's no doubt in my mind that we were a football team on a different tier than they were. And you can't, not that they're a bad football team, you can't play poorly against a good team when it matters, especially when they're making plays the way that they did, and give them credit. They went out there and made some plays. Jamar Chase, one of the best young receivers, if not the best young receiver in all of football. And you got Trent McDuffie, you got Jalen Watson, Josh Williams, you got all these young corners. This is going to be a test. We've said it before, but this is Trent McDuffie, like his next big, like, hey, this is a dude. This is the kind of dude that you're going to have to match up with to win something special, to go and play for a chance to win a trophy and a ring.
And yeah, you know, we know how it's gonna look. That's the best thing too. Sometimes you go into these games that are important or pivotal and you're like, man, I wonder how it's gonna all play out. You know, y'all. You know, Spags is gonna be like, I don't care. We're going to blitz. We're going to do some funky stuff, and like let's see it. Let's see if we can do it a certain way, so that we can also figure out how we may change some things for the postseason. You gotta win today while also learning about yourself for the even bigger games. And when I visualize the big offense, the Chiefs defense, it does come down to what Nick Bolton said. Are you in position to make a play? And then can you tackle? Because they were so bad at tackling the Bengals last year.
Yeah, they're going to be in position. And I'm just looking for George Karlaftis, like, I won't be greedy, like at least a 4-sack game. Let's get 4 from him so we can get back on pace to flirt with the record that everybody reminds me of every time, because I was pretty vocal about him flirting with DT's record. He got his sack last week. So hey, he averages 1.5 over the next 6. He'll tie it. It starts on Sunday.
It starts on Sunday. And look, there by the way, quietly, y'all, Bengals offensive line is looking good. So this gonna be a nice little test for the Chiefs defensive line, which has been dominating over the last month. Bengals offense looks delicious. I'm fascinated to see where the Chiefs are gonna sort of put their pressures, how they're gonna try to sort of influence the Bengals offensive line. But the Bengals offensive line has played well, and they didn't make that many mistakes against the Tennessee Titans.
Well, Spags is coming. You know he's going to send him. I don't care if they send 4, if they send 7. There are going to be some dudes getting after him. I hope they hit him, make him uncomfortable, all those things, because Bengals, not great to start the season. They've started to figure things out. They're obviously playing better, and they're going to get Chase and Mixon back. But this is going to be a fun one, and I know it's regular season, all those things, but I can't imagine that these guys aren't going to be as locked in as we've seen them all year going into this one. I know they were for the Bills and all of that, but this is more personal for a team that you know that you're better than. Even if they're a solid team, you know you're better than these guys. So anyway, that is everything we've got for Nate Taylor today with our 5 burning questions. Nate, what are you working on this week at The Athletic, and how can people find your stuff?
Yeah, theathletic.com. Please check us out if you get a chance. We got some World Cup stuff going on too, which has been super duper fascinating. Told you about the work I'm going to be doing with Jarrett McKinnon, and then might be something Patrick Mahomes related about a specific part of his game that just again showcases why. Yep, he's the best in the league at doing this, and when he does this, it usually means bad things for the opposing defense. So I don't want to totally give it away, but hopefully that's
puts on a teaser. Football jersey.
Nope.
Like he steps out onto the field.
When he is on the field, I truly believe seeks to do this as much as possible, even though he is becoming a more patient quarterback. But I do think he does seek these moments to do this specific thing that
right.
even with all the knowledge defenses has, even without Tyreek Hill, when I do this, I still have the upper hand. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully it comes out later this week.
Down 10. I'm gonna get. You got me. I'm hooked.
I can't give you the answer, but
all right.
It's
I'm purely guessing, but I'm excited. I'm gonna read this one for sure. But we're gonna say something else. You're gonna tease a little bit more.
No, that's it. Right. That's it. I can't give you more than this, BJ.
All right. That's Nate Taylor from The Athletic. We appreciate all you for hanging out with us on this episode of KCSN Update. We'll have more content getting you ready for Chiefs Bengals on Sunday afternoon here at KC Sports Network. If you liked what you heard, please hit that like button, hit that follow button, and leave us a review so other people can find the content as well. The more people that find it, the more cool stuff that we can do. So we appreciate all your support, and we'll see you all next time.